the CIA technically is not supposed to be spying on Americans in America. But the way that they get around that is they use the Five Eyes, which are the intelligence agencies from our top allied countries, to do the spying, and then they share the information with the CIA. So that's one way they can do it.
The commercial capture to help you sell a mattress is one thing. Gathering all this information, is it just for information for its own sake? Who are these people beholden to? What is their ultimate MO?
Well, the thing that's, they may not have any. They may just, there may be no sinister motive at this moment in history. The problem is that once you put that power, once you give that power to a government, it will, and this is a solid rule, any power that the government has, it will also ultimately abuse to the maximum extent possible. And it will never give back voluntarily. And, the last rule is that nobody ever complied their way out of totalitarianism, so we're all going along with it. And we don't know. And if Edward Snowden had not come out, we would not know that any of this was going on, that our telephone calls are all being monitored, that our text messages and emails are all being monitored and stored in these big data centers in Utah, and that there's nothing that you do that is private anymore. And until that moment, Americans assumed that the government was not spying on them. So now the question is, they may not be doing anything bad with it now, but if at any moment that could change.
You also said that in the 3 years since the pandemic, you write in the book that I reread this past week about Anthony Fauci, you said that Americans have had this naive idealism that makes them reluctant to believe that their government's COVID policies were grotesquely ill-conceived. I feel like people are waking up. That's from my position. Do you think people are becoming less naive since the pandemic, that they're being shaken awake?
I think there's more skepticism particularly about the medical agencies, the public health agencies. That CDC lost a lot of credibility, which is good because CDC doesn't deserve the credibility at this point. People should be skeptical, and we need to be skeptical to protect ourselves and our children. It's bad overall because, we really should be strengthening democratic institutions and strengthening public faith in democratic institutions. But the way you do that is by making those institutions trustworthy, not by lying to people. So, and until that happens, it's good for people to exercise skepticism and mistrust.
Debbie Bernal was one of 2 Pfizer officials that came to me. And she went public in March with me on a stage. And she communicated to me just how scared she was. There were vans outside of her home. She was terrified. Are you, going back to the fear issue, do you ever get scared that these government agencies, these pharmaceutical companies are going to try to physically harm you or the people that you care about?
I don't get scared about it, and I don't worry about it, but I know I'm aware of it. I'm aware of that danger, but I'm not going to worry about that stuff. And I feel like, this is my country, and I have a kind of a duty to fight that kind of stuff. There was a generation in this country in 1776 that put their lives on the line. A lot of them died and put their fortunes on the line and their property and their reputations, their livelihood, in order to give us the constitutional rights that we now take for granted. And in 1 year we saw so many of those constitutional rights just eviscerated, and we have to be willing to make the same kind of sacrifices they do. There's a lot worse things to me than dying, and one of those is having my kids grow up in America where they do not have the constitutional rights that I grew up with.